Somebody needs to ban April Fools immediately. I have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, led astray by Arman Tsarukyan's story posting that he would be fighting Ilia Topuria at the White House card, and it got me so hyped, which is why I'm making this video. Did I later realise by somebody messaging me that it was April Fools after I'd already put it on my Instagram story? Yes, but the feeling I got when I looked at my phone, and for that, well, for me it was hours, for some people it was seconds of realisation that it could have been real. It was the best part of my day. I couldn't wait to see it. It made the White House card so much more hype, and it's made me realise we are missing out on the fights we really want to see over and over again. Ilia vs Arman isn't even the biggest Ilia fight we want to see, but I still jumped out of my seat for it. So let's start off by what makes the best versus the best. Arman Tsarukyan has been on an absolute media blitz, making him one of the most popular UFC fighters in the world. But before that, before he had all the fame that he has now, he's always had the money. We wanted to see that fight. That was the biggest lightweight matchup for Ilia Topuria. He had beaten Charles Oliveira. He had just coming off beating Dan Hooker. It clearly was the matchup to make, and the UFC went a different direction. Now, I don't mind if you go a different direction by putting someone up who has equal resume currently or is just as hyped. But Justin Gaethje fills in and beats Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett could have been this star that Arman Tsarukyan is. He stepped up against an older Justin Gaethje and he couldn't get it done. But now we've got 37-year-old Justin Gaethje coming off 2 back-to-back wins after getting flatlined by Max Holloway, who just got dominated for 5 rounds by Charles Oliveira, who had previously lost to Arman Tsarukyan, fighting Ilia Topuria for the title. So why do we not get the fights we want to see? Ducking, inactivity, injury, and Dana White. I genuinely believe, well, Hunter Campbell. The matchmaking at the UFC is a big reason as to why we don't get these fights, but it's not the only reason. These champions being inactive, fighting 3 times every 2 years, are the reason why we can't get these hype title fights. Ilia Topuria knocked out Charles Oliveira in 1 round at UFC 327, and he's now booked to fight at what would be UFC 329. I assume now it's going to be pushed back and UFC 329 will be afterwards. But 317 to 329, that's over a 10-month layoff. 12 UFC cards difference. I know he had the divorce, which is kind of a bit of extra reason as to why he wasn't in the octagon. But a 12 UFC pay-per-view card layoff in between fights, coming off a first-round knockout where he took basically no damage. Arman Tsarukyan sitting out from UFC 300 to all the way to when he fought Dan Hooker as the main event of the fight night. You can't wait out that long. But also, Hunter Campbell has to take the blame for this. When they had waited out that long and it was all over and he did fight Dan Hooker and dominated Dan Hooker, he was then in a clear #1 contender spot. There was nobody on his level. It was fairly questionable with Arman being the front runner before he beat Dan Hooker. And then once he had beaten Dan Hooker, it was out of the question, easily Arman Tsarukyan. And you set up an interim title fight that doesn't include him. It's terrible matchmaking, but it's what they do at every single division. This logjam that we're having right now at welterweight, where Kamaru Usman is genuinely be considered for a title fight in 2026 on a 1-fight win streak after losing 3 fights in a row, that symbolises where we're at in the UFC. We couldn't get Tom versus John, ducking. That's the ducking factor. There is a part of this where guys are protecting their legacy, and I don't like it. Guys, especially the new undefeated era of fighters, where fighters have lost none, or they've drawn 1, or they've got 1 loss on their resume and it's before they entered the UFC. People in the UFC are starting to be afraid to lose their O, and that's what boxing did. Boxing had a major downfall when fighters would not risk it against other top-level fighters, all because they wanted to stay undefeated. If you don't fight the best, it's irrelevant whether you're undefeated. Khabib would be the GOAT. He's the only undefeated fighter in UFC history of any relevance. Why is he not the GOAT? Because he didn't continue to fight the best of the best. He had a little stint and then it fell off. Fighting the best of the best is more important than keeping the quote-unquote the undefeated record when you're fighting the worst opponents. I understand Arman is not in favour with the UFC, and this particular situation might be something different. But tell me, when you saw that this morning or this afternoon, whenever you saw it, and that split second when you thought it was true, Didn't you feel better about the White House card? I would have felt much better about the White House card if it was Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan as the main event. Once we lose the fear factor of your favourite fighters or your most hated fighters losing, then you've lost the audience. Once we get to a point where we're making matchups where we think the guy's a massive, massive favourite, what's the point in watching? Yes, will everybody tune into the White House card? Absolutely. Will everybody be hyped when Justin Gaethje and Ilia Topuria walk out? Absolutely. But do we all think in our mind, barring the biggest upset in UFC history, we all know exactly how it's going to go? Absolutely. Do most people think that Ilia Topuria is going to beat Arman Tsarukyan? Yes, they do. Are they still nervous as Ilia fans? As an Ilia fan myself, yes, I am. There is still a little bit of chance, or do you know what, to be honest, the big chance that Ilia gets exposed by Arman Tsarukyan in what is a 60-40, 50-50 fight. Arman versus Ilia just has a better ring to it. And that's not even to speak of Ilia versus Islam Makhachev, which sounds the best. But right now, with the current state of the UFC, I'll just accept better. Because Arman Tsarukyan has baited me, and I'm not happy with it. Stop fighting at RAF, come back to the UFC, and fight somebody. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Is Justin Gaethje versus Ilia enough, or is Arman the real #1 contender? Please like and subscribe for more.